Hello. Okay. Hello. It works? Okay. Hello.
Open this. And how do we get? Yes, good morning, everybody. Very happy to see you here at the very beginning of a very full program of Science Week with a lot of interesting parallel events. We are very excited to see you here to share some of our work. In fact, across a number of centers, even though definitely not covering everything that CGIAR is doing on experiential learning. There is much more, but we give you some snapshot of it with work from ICRISAT, from IMI, from IFPRI, work C4ICRAF is doing with Wageningen. And it will be a quite packed agenda where we have 6 brief presentations, and then hopefully there is time left for some discussions. Otherwise, please follow up with us individually. And yeah, so what is the general framing? Experiential learning as an approach to learn by experiencing, by experimenting, by yeah, using a more participatory approach where we move away from mode of teaching, explaining things, but rather letting people who are affected by different types of challenges connected to agriculture and natural resource management to let them find their own solutions. And without me talking very long, let us immediately jump into our first presentation. Mekinen Melesse from ICRISAT is going to present our first case, a case from India where we used experiential learning games to support groundwater management and governance. Mekinen, please.
Thank you, Thomas. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to present a work on behalf of my colleagues, a very long list of team contributing to this work, led by Ruth, Thomas, of course. A specific mention is to our team in India, the FS team, the Foundation Security for Ecology. Obviously, I'm going to give you a very high-level application of the work because we have been given 10 minutes. 10 minutes would not be enough. My name is Mekinen Melesse. I'm an agricultural economist working at ICRISAT, based in Nairobi. Welcome. So let me give you a very brief background about water management and governance issues in India. Basically, India is a country which is largely dominated by arid and semi-arid agroecologies, and it is also a country which is characterized as the largest user of groundwater, especially groundwater And over time, the groundwater tables, as well as other water bodies, have shown a continuous decline due to droughts and a number of other issues, especially in terms of water exploitation, and matched with the recharge rate of the water bodies. And significantly, a large part of the country is characterized as high and extremely high water stress country. So this is where we conducted our study, the experiential games. As you know, water is a common pool resource. Basically, it is characterized by a high level of non-excludability in terms of utilization. Especially, the problem is more pronounced when it comes to groundwaters, because in underground waters, even if the users could observe the level of the water as an outcome, they don't observe the dynamics of the water because a lot of recharging is happening in underground. So we identified about 3 key stages where we implement our research, and they are very much intensively users of groundwater. Obviously, as a common pool resource, the problem has been cooperation among very widely dispersed water users. We wanted to initiate a cooperation through experience, reflection, as well as playing the games as a means of participation in decision making for water management. So the experiential learning games, we have quite a number of games considering groundwater, dam construction, and surface water. Here I am focusing only on the groundwater games. Basically, the experiential games aim to give a structure for the community to see their interdependence in water utilization, as well as beyond their interdependence, they would get a chance to reflect how their individual actions would affect the overall water availability for the community at large. And this is a very important simulating environment to see the consequences of their individual decisions, not only for the individual, the decision-making individual, but also other community members at large. So through these games, we highlighted some learning paths. One is participation in the game through decision-making, and the other element is the debriefing, where we bring the community together to play, to deliberate on the outcomes of the game, where players of the game would reflect on their experience on the game, as well as the outcome of the decisions at different phases of the game. The game was played by 5 individuals as a team that would have an initial baseline groundwater level that will be affected by the decision of the players depending on their crop choice. Basically, they will make a crop choice that would affect both their profitability and the water level available for the community. So they would have 2 choices to make. One is a highly profitable crop, but highly water consumptive. And the other one is a less water consumptive crop, and at the same time, it is less profitable. So they have to make a trade-off between present water consumption and future water availability for the community at large, as well as for the group. Basically, the water level will depend on the water extraction rate and the water recharge rate. The water recharge rate being a function of the crop choice, taking into account the profitability and the water consumption. The rounds, they could play up to 10 rounds. We have different variations, but the standard one basically allows for the first round to be played without any communication, but other subsequent rounds would be through communication. Individuals would deliberate and see the outcome of the game at that stage, and then take it forward to the next stage taking, we are trying to create a dynamics in the decision-making process. So the community debriefing, as I have already said, once the games are played, the individuals, not only the players, but other community members would be invited into a central place where we deliberate a debriefing session. The community debriefing session, basically, the individuals would reflect on their experience, try to find a way to relate the outcome to their real life water utilization challenges. And at the same time, they would try to devise some potential solutions as a community level for their real life problems. And this study has started quite some time back. We have been piloting, and in the piloting, it was founded with a strong impact across rules, behavioral changes, as well as contributions to community infrastructure. And the current study is focusing the scaling up. We used our pilot results as a foundation to get into a scale-up project, a study where we reached quite a large number of communities, more than 470 habitation across 3 different states in India. Even if our results were really strong at the pilot level, at the scaling stage, the results were not really quite robust across different dimensions that we want. And the only significant result has been very much on increasing contributions to infrastructure maintenance, which is in itself an important aspect, but taking that into more high-level outcome in terms of rule enforcement, as well as behavior change in terms of crop choice, was not very uniform. So we have substantial results in terms of increasing presence of law in some of the communities where we played the game, and at the same time, a reduction of the area allocated for water consumptive crops in the real farm field of the players. So we have really established quite a strong foundation, both at the community level, to the government and our partner, especially Foundation for Ecological Security, FS, our key partner in the implementation of our experiments. They engaged in training more than 1,100 key personnel, key resource persons across the different counties to lay really a strong foundation for scaling the games across the different states. Of course, beyond that, we collaborated with government entities and programs that are funded by the government, led by the government, the extension system, where we try to
Okay, thank you, Mekanen. It's a very interesting presentation. I just had one question. You said that the results were not so robust at scaling, and I'm curious to know if you have any reasons why.
Yeah, now much of the explanation is going to still remain speculative without definitely testing some of the channels we articulate. But we felt that the scaling was really a large scale, and we involved quite a number of resource persons whom themselves need to understand the gameplay in quite robustly if we have to expect an impact. That would be some of the subtleties where we try to reflect back on the study itself. Another thing, some of the outcomes we are looking like rule enforcement. This really requires a high level of coordination and even being supported by the local authorities to see the rule would be supported, especially some of the rules that are semi-formal type that are also recognized by the government. So, and also we felt that the time, especially the time, should also play an important role. It was very short and reflexive when it comes to see some of the impact at higher level. So these are some of the issues we are trying to address, but going forward, this is something we are going to consider very seriously and also reflect on it. Hello? Oh, I took the question.
Yeah, sorry, if you have more questions, please approach us after the session. We don't want to run late immediately. And I'm happy to announce Wei Zhang from the International Food Policy Research Institute, who is going to share with you experiences how basically the same tool Mekanen just talked about has been taken to the African context. Wei, please.
So yes, thank you, Mekanen, for the presentation. It makes my job easier because we essentially use the same groundwater games developed originally by Ruth Meitendick, Marco Jensen from Arizona State, and Foundation for Ecological Security in India. In this presentation, I'm trying to share our experience in adapting the game in two African country contexts. So the work was led by IFPRI and funded by the Feed the Future Innovation Labs for small-scale irrigation. It's part of the research initiative on Nexus Games. And our collaborators in Ethiopia, Fakadu Galau from Haramaya University and Nathan Tekov, who is an independent consultant. And in Ghana, our main country collaborators are Emmanuel Albobi and Margaret Kuriba. They're from Water Research Institute, the Council for Science and Scientific and Industrial Research in Ghana, and University of Development Studies. So, I mean, games as a research tool has been used to help us understand patterns in behavior and the propensity to collaborate. But in recent years, researchers and practitioners have been using games to build learning tool. So, I mean, the original motivation was really the experience in India, where Ruth and colleagues developed this groundbreaking tool to support self-governance and collective action in India, where groundwater depletion situation is more severe. And they found that a higher proportion of the communities in their treatment group were later able to adopt rules as compared to the control group. So very much inspired by that and the initial success, we piloted the game in two African countries. We wanted to do this in a pilot scale to accumulate more evidence on whether games as an experiential learning tool can have impact. So there in Ethiopia and Ghana, we have a similar situation where small-scale irrigation has been rapidly expanding to improve food security, livelihoods. We're not seeing water depletion yet, but there is a concern that as the push for small-scale irrigation continue, we may start seeing the depletion over extraction problems that we see in India. So we would like to introduce this learning opportunity to see to what extent we can so-called help plant the seed for awareness at the point where you don't reach the critical turning point for the groundwater resource yet to prevent potential over exploration without affecting people's ability to expand irrigation and income. So the main research question for us is to what extent can the intervention change individual mental models about groundwater, and then to what extent the experiential learning intervention can lead to community level actions to address sustainable water management. Okay, and I wanted to emphasize the adaptation super important to make the game relevant to the context. So we tried the game in 3 contexts in Putajara, Ethiopia, and then this is a sequence actually help us learn from what we do and keep improving the tool in Upper East region, Ghana, and then finally in Keta Basin in Ghana. So I want to emphasize it's the combination of the game and the community debriefing that creates this experiential learning action situation. So both of them are critical. Okay, so just quickly, we adopted a mixed method approach where we collected both quantitative and qualitative data from the baseline focus group discussion, the notes taken during the game, and then the end-line focus group discussion. Just quickly talking about the adaptation. So when we took the game to Ethiopia, we wanted to try a new game. So in addition to the non-communication and communication games that were played in India, we wanted to add one more for the members to decide whether they want to create rules and start testing those rules within the game. We obviously also need to tweak the game to fit the context. And then what we learned from Ethiopia is that, after the intervention, before the end-line revisit, it's a long time period. And we wanted to see whether some kind of midterm intervention could help serve as a refresher purpose. So in Upper East region Ghana, we added a refresher discussion to our treatment group. And then when we adapted the game to Keta Strip, we realized what's most important for the local communities is salinity rather than shortage. So we adapted the crop choice decision to a farm size. Okay, our overall findings across all these contexts that we found significant learning on cognitive, normative, and relation. So cognitive is about learning about trade-off between individual short-term earnings versus joint outcome long-term. Normative learning is about the recognizing the need for rules at the community level, and relational learning is more about the value of collective action and communication, and we found results on all 3. And across contexts, players responded in the expected direction. Okay, I'm just gonna run this quickly. So we know that groundwater is affected by many factors, so just playing the game will not fix the problem. But we do prove that the groundwater game and experiential learning intervention can enable change in community mental model and revealing that mismatch between our previous mental model and the actual dynamic system, for groundwater. Post-game debriefing is super important for people to connect their game experience to real-life challenges and also to stimulate a discussion about discovery of solutions And we want to take the game to the next level, right? So there are many opportunities, including a participatory approach to co-adaptation, co-creation of such learning tools with the community members. And it's important to spend more time. So when we have a project, we rush, we want to see short-term results. If our end goal is to support a learning about this, very difficult to manage resource, then we need to invest time diving deep into the issues and talk about how we can support a vision to action process. Yeah, so our general conclusion is this is a rapid, scalable learning intervention, and this is a first step to raise awareness and to client mindset. But we need more. We need longer term investment and commitment, patience, but also other tools, other interventions. For example, technical assistance to support on the supply side, in addition to the game supporting on the demand side, but also tools to help us understand better the water situation, aquifer, and crop, what exactly are the crops that save water or use more water. Okay, I'm gonna stop there. Just some nice quotes from our debriefing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Wei. You have time for one brief question? Okay, not right now, maybe then later. In the interest of time, let's move on. Thank you very much, Wei. And I hand over to Alok Sikar from the International Water Management Institute. And he will talk about gamification approaches in the context of climate action.
Thank you, Thomas. And this presentation is, you can see my colleague Giriraj from IMI headquarters Colombo. So I'm standing in for him. And here, because it's really a good experience, because when I was talking to Thomas, we have been doing a whole lot on experiential learning, but in a different way. Of course, in the same way, but now more in getting into this gaming and trying to get into more of. So here, what basically we are trying to showcase is use of gaming and games in climate action, climate advisories, and also what we have been doing a lot of bundling solutions. So it is from that point of view, so where we are trying to really integrate a couple of things together. And as you will see over here, so we are basically trying to see that how best we can get into this smart, or what we call serious gaming, and integrate it with digital climate advisories and the bundling solutions, in trying to see that how in a more interactive way you can really lead to a much more powerful decision making by the farmers. So, and for the farmers. So that's the basically, and here we will be taking you through the two use cases. One on the GeoGovia. GeoGovia means it's a farmer. So that's the kind of a platform which has been established together with the government, and it's really making good strides. And another is willingness to pay for the insurance. So now here, I think I will not go into this detailing, because we know that why the games and gamification is really catching up. Because what we have been doing, this kind of a participatory analysis, RRAs and the PRAs, and now there are better ways to do, really look into that. And when they were talking about the groundwater, I was really getting fascinated, but that's my area of specialization. And even when we are doing long time back, we used to come up with a simple chart that show a bucket, how where is the level of the groundwater, and once you pump, how long it takes again to come back to that level. So those kind of things. And now we are trying to make it more digitally, more pictorially as the time progresses. So this is something that we are trying to see that how best we can engage this gaming mechanics in trying to have a more informed decision making for the environmental issues and more here on the agriculture and the agro-advisory services. So I think I'll not go into this objectives of gaming because by now I think we all know that what we are really looking into. And in our case, here we are trying to see that how we can have this leverage the digital games with the communities to better navigate this climate-related challenges and the solutions, and then share with them that how really we can look into those kind of things. So this role, etc., I think I'm not going to talk much about that because we know that now this is really becoming a powerful tool in trying to do multi-stakeholder engagement in a much quicker and a more crystal clear manner. And at the same time, you can get a lot of considered views so that we can make a much more informed decision. Now, as I said, that because Thomas said that he will give me only 8 minutes or so, so I am trying to, and then the two use case studies, as I said, the GeoGave platform in Sri Lanka. You can Google it and see that it is making a lot of noise there. And so this particularly Govia means the farmer. So means the geographical information based decision making for the farmers. So here what basically it tries to do is we are looking into this thing in a more gamified manner, what kind of those advices are to be made in a more interactive manner, and that is where this advisory become more crucial for optimizing the cropping pattern. So here the way it is being used, because I'm not going to preempt everything about this GeoGovia platform because day after tomorrow I have a whole lot of going to make a presentation on this GeoGovia. So those who are interested, so I'm not going to tell in detail. Let that appetite be there so that you guys will come other day. So that's something that I would like to say. So basically, as I said, because this engages a diverse range of groups. It's not only just the farmers, as I said, the multiple stakeholders, the government, the NGOs, and the researchers. And here, my colleagues are really working very closely, not just with the farmers, but also with the government. And the government is using this platform even for making some financial assistance in Sri Lanka. And so that's something that, but it is where we are working together using in a multiple way that we can. Now, another case is with the farmers willing to pay for the weather index insurance. This weather index based or the IBFI or BIXA, whatever the way you call it, like bundling of insurance with advisories and the tolerant seed varieties and stuff like that. So that's something we have been working in multiple countries, including Sri Lanka and India. And so this is where you'll see that how best we can see using these games to help the farmer better understand the value of this index insurance, because it becomes much more simplified when we are doing it in a simulating real world situation. Another good thing that we have seen in there, that when you make these interactive simulations, it also can look into that how they can compare the traditional responses. Otherwise, traditional responses will be okay, we'll borrow some money if the crop is lost and stuff like that, selling assets. But you will see from here that how this thing has really helped them in looking into those kind of things. And lastly, it really helps us in doing the co-design of this entire exercise, entire scheme of things, entire strategy, because this is where we can bring how these games can really help in making best use of their farmers' interactions. Now, this slide, okay, here there are some of the results where we have seen for both for the irrigated and the rain-fed farmers that how really they, like you see, no trust. Trust has been one of the major reason for them not to really go for all these kind of things. So that's how we'll be improving. And of course, you will see certain things are lack of understanding is kind of common in either of the groups. So when we are doing this kind of a gaming, so we can definitely have a much more better understanding about all these things so that they'll be able to prepare. And then what happens, because insurance and index based or the front, even for us it is difficult to sometimes understand how you can simplify it and tell the farmer using those kind of games. So that what we are now trying to do is how best we can really make best use of this game in our efforts for the future climate action. You know, the next door that meeting is going on, the climate action, that's overflowing. So that indicates the kind of the interest that we have. So we are trying to see that how best we can really integrate it in a much more better way. And as the technology advances, really we can make much more better and informed decision making. So with this, thank you very much. I hope I'm pretty much in time.
Again, time for one or two brief questions. Are we overwhelming you? Okay, there is a question. Can you please use the microphone?
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Thaisa, and actually I'm a user experience researcher at Alliance, but with a background in rural sociology. So it's my first time actually in a presentation about this topic. So sorry if I make a mistake in the question, but I really like your presentation. And I would like to better understand how you fit this gaming into like the final product that you see there with them. Like how you transform gamification, this understanding until the final product or whatever you have process and service.
See, as everybody was talking about, because we are basically, and so is in this case, trying to make best use of this is playing games with the farm, because you can play with one farmer or a group of farmers. And when you do this kind of very intricate science, say for example, of groundwater they were talking about, in a more demystified way, in a more simplistic way, and then try to put it, and the one other way to put everything in a very simplistic way is when you play through this kind of a games, because that makes a sense of visualization, and when you have a visualization, you have a better sense of realization. And so that is how we are trying to connect this kind of things together, so that instead of just making it a one-way platform or one unidirection, you make it multi-directional with multi-stakeholders association. And that is where you can try to put all these experiences of the farmers, because they get a lot of things get demystified with them, and then they can take a much more better and informed decision and actions. Oh, because that's what I understood. I maybe you understood well. But the question was general, not specific to this.
Yeah. So sounds like a little bit larger discussion. Maybe we find each other also for some breaks. Happy to talk more about this. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ella. Now, let me introduce our next speaker, Erika Spielmann from the Wageningen University and Research, is going to talk again about another different type of game approaches and basically presenting a large program which you have implemented over a couple of years. And yeah, looking forward to hear your presentation more on the role of playing type of games.
So, good morning, everybody. Like Thomas already said, my name is Erika Spielmann, and I'm just going to give a brief overview of this program that we've been working on for the last, I think, almost 5 years now, which is called CGIAR. And I've been leading this program together with Meike van Noordwijk, who some of you probably know because he's ICRA, or he used to be ICRA, and Gert-Jan Hofstede, and we're also all from Wageningen. So when we started thinking on developing this research, it came kind of from two different directions. So on one hand, we are interested in the tool as games to further develop that, but also in the context of agroforestry systems. And at the time, still a lot of attention goes always when we talk about trees and forests to carbon. But carbon is a very abstract concept to most people. And relatively recently, the role of water has become also in terms of climate change, has become more and more clear. It has also a very strong impact. And of course, water is much easier to understand for people because everybody needs it, everybody uses it. So what we try to understand is what is really the role of water in forest and people connection. So we came up with trying to understand forest water people nexus better. Especially because, well, this nice figure shows kind of the different paradigms that there are in the role of trees in the landscape related to water. So there are those that think that more trees is always better. Everybody has more water, the world is better, everybody's happy. So like the cure-all view on trees. There's also the view that there's actually some competition, for instance, in the landscape between upstream, downstream. And then there is kind of, which is more in the center. If you think of the full hydrological cycle, it's much more complex. It depends on where you are in the world, what kind of trees, what else is in the landscape, what's being done. So it's a very complex situation. But it's made even more complex because, of course, people are having their views and their perception on how this works, and also on how they interact with water and trees. So this is the context of what we started building up this program, on trying to understand how people use and view the forest water people nexus from their different perspectives, from the different cultures, and we do this through games. So that's where the name Say Some comes from. We try to avoid the word games because at least still a lot of people think that games are only for fun and they don't necessarily take you serious. Even though we say it's a serious game, people still don't take it that serious when we start talking about it. So we call it scenario evaluation games for agroforestry systems. And what we try to do here in this figure, you can see we try the program to really focus on understanding in context, because we work in 12 different landscapes in the tropics. But at the same time, we try to better understand how you can design games that work and what are the elements that make them work, and also how do we use them and how can we be smarter in that use, and how can we actually prove that it has an impact. Oh, what am I doing? I clicked to the next one, but now it's doing something funny. Oh, it's funny. Maybe just that's thing.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Very interesting. And I saw that in your pictures, you had men and women participating in the game. So could you tell a bit more about the learning from what do women and men add differently to the games? What do you take out of the games? What do they take out differently from the games? Thank you.
I would like to clarify what you just said, your last point. So what you're saying is when you have men and women in the separate sessions, or is it in the same separate session? Yeah. Yeah. Yes, yes. So what you're saying is then they would go and make independent decisions, not consultative. Okay.
Hello. Thank you for giving me the. So I wanted to ask a question. You say that the farmers can make any decision uh, and condition they want within the aggregated system. So how do you assure that those individual choices still align with the shared goals or standard of the group?
There is a
Uh, Thank you very much. Um, I just wonder whether for your experiment and for Kinudia's, did you uh, did you control for, I mean, when you pay for these games, is there a control for when you don't pay, what is the impact? And then the fact that you're paying for some sort of reward, some sort of incentive, uh, how do we use these games to influence the work that we're doing for those of us who may be looking to scale these in areas where we're not paying? I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. Very, very good.
hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks to all the panelists for the great presentations. I have a question about targeting and also literacy issues. So how do you go about targeting the players? Do you have criteria of the type of profile of individual farmer you want to get to the game? And the second question is, how do you deal with literacy challenges with folks that might not be able to read the rules of the games or be used to playing games? How do you deal with that? Also, yeah, very relevant. Yeah.
Any? Okay. Yeah, so we have had this issue as well with people, especially not being able to read or write or not well enough. So one thing we try is also, yeah, we do the same and the practice round and really explaining things. And generally, there's not a lot of wording used in the games that we have developed in our program, but still there is some. So what we've done in a few cases, and that seemed to work well, is to not invite well, the generation of now, but to ask them specifically to bring, for instance, their son or daughter or grandchildren that are usually more literate. So to kind of include that perspective, and also that way to kind of avoid potential issues with literacy.
So to add on that, like Wei said, for us, we did not have that liberty of choosing who to play the games because we have nature positive initiative farmers. And like you said, the issue of literacy came out, especially in the first treatment where you earn on individual points, because the younger ones, as they would say, it's part of what we got in the debriefs, the younger ones would understand these tablets faster than the others. So in the end, the points, they had higher points than the older generation would say. And also there was an issue of colors because each player has their own color. So we had one situation like that, and what we did, the following day when she was an old lady, she came back with a younger member of her family who was helping her in playing the game. But one thing we did, as we said, we had a training, we had a half-day training the day before. And the good thing is, as they grew into the game, they kind of got to understand, because for each individual game, we had five years of playing. So at the end, they kind of got, by the time we got to the third game, they kind of got to understand the game much better. And actually, when I was leaving, I nearly left the tablets there because they were like, you can leave the tablets with us, we will be making these decisions, and then you'll be analyzing the data in Nairobi. So they kind of grew into the game. But yeah, we had to invest a lot of time into the training. And the following day when they came for the actual games, we had to do a kind of, let's remind you what we did yesterday. So we had to do a lot of investment time when it came to the training.
Sorry. Oh my God. Okay. Apologies. I came late, so I might have missed an important element that you introduced initially. But I was wondering how you're introducing the purpose of the games with the different communities. Because one of the things that strikes me, I guess, as a listener is that I understand that the results or the process, how people are playing, and the outcomes of the games might reveal something about preference. That I understand. But I am, I think, still struggling to see the connection to behavioral changes. And I'm wondering whether that is introduced. Like when you play the games, do you introduce them as, hey, we're coming to see, to make you have some fun? Or is it, we're coming to influence how you make your decisions? Or we're coming to find out what matters to you? Like, how is it being introduced? Thank you. And how do you think it influences the results?